All right, so today's training will be over menu planning. So we'll go over two parts. So we'll have a part one and then a part two. But before we get into that training, I want to make sure that we go back over our actual training plan so that you all, if you have any questions about the upcoming training, you can ask those questions. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so here you can see our upcoming training. So we have training scheduled, of course, today and then all the way through December. And so once you look at this training plan, you'll see there are some classes that have the same title, and that is on purpose. So if you're not able to make one on one day, you can always come to a training that same week a few days later. And you also see here there are some trainings that we have labs. So like starting Tuesday, October 24th, we'll have a lab. And this lab is time for you all that may need additional training, or if you have any questions, or like I said, just need additional support, you're more than welcome to come in person, and we'll make sure that we're able to provide that support that you need. I'm going to go ahead and put the link for this more in the chat. So if you all do not have this training schedule, then you'll see the upcoming schedule that we'll be conducting for you all. Okay, again, please make sure that you have signed in using the link that's been provided for you in the chat. And then also to access today's materials, you'll go to R10 Live Binder, which has also been provided for you along with the passcode. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started with today's training over menu planning. So today's training will be brought to you by Chris Knorr. Chris is from Region 4. She went through the pilot program last year, so she is supporting Region 10 with her expertise in WebSCM. So Chris, I'll let you go ahead and take over.
All right, I'm just having my screen on so you can see my face, but I will shut it off during the training just to help with bandwidth. So let me get started and I'll share my screen. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So you should be seeing my screen with the PowerPoint presentation, correct?
Yes, we see like you're in presenter mode.
Oh, darn it. Okay, hold on. Try this again. So sorry. It's because I have three things going here. Okay. You see it now?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Let me move this bar out of the way. Okay, there we go. Okay, so these first trainings, as we've discussed on, I guess it was Monday or Tuesday, we are just talking about how to get ready before we go into WebSCM. So we first talked about entitlement, and today we're going to talk about menu planning, and then next week you're going to talk about forecasting. So we're just getting prepared. We're going to talk about the steps to get prepared before we actually, go into WebSCM, so that you're not ordering foods that you don't need or that won't get used. Okay. So of course we have our standard acknowledgement statement, that you understand that this training does not cover the entire scope of our child nutrition program. You're still responsible for understanding all handbooks, manuals, alerts, notices, guidance, and any other form of communication. All right, let's get started. So this first part one, we're just going to talk about the menu overview, some menu planning standards, and a few resources. So by the end of this, you should be able to understand menu planning purpose and benefits, identify and implement meal component requirements, and be able to identify and implement USDA nutrition requirements, including calories, saturated fat, and sodium. Okay, so forecasting impacts your development of your menu cycles. So the first step is always when I look at our menu cycles. And so that's what we're talking about today. So without forecasting, you may end up developing a menu that is not well accepted at your school. And unfortunately, you would probably allocate USDA foods or write them into your bids that items that might not get used or the students don't enjoy. So that's why we want to, prepare before we go in there. You might end up not, receiving the full potential of those USDA foods. When we talked about entitlement earlier this week. And so just making sure you're using all of your entitlement, not leaving any on the table. So again, the purpose and benefits of our menu planning is it's vital for our forecasting. We have to have a menu first to know what we need to and how much we need to forecast for. Also helps control our costs. It increases your participation, right? So if your kids know, what's going to be on the menu is items they enjoy, they like to have, they know we're going to have Taco Tuesday and pizza every Friday. They get used to those menu cycles. It saves time. It allows more flexibility. Definitely reduces waste. Again, because if you're on a menu cycle, you're going to serve those items again. So if they're still on your shelves in your freezer, they are going to get used. And also your plan, you've already had it planned out, so you're going to know you're going to meet your regulations. So let's talk a little bit about those regulations. What are our nutritional standards? So the first thing is the meal components. So again, our meal components are meat alternates, vegetable, fruit, milk, and grain. Remember, we have our 5 components. Additionally, there are calorie requirement standards. So the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act of 2010 established dietary guidelines in the National School Lunch Program. This initiative set limits on saturated fat, trans fat, sodium, whole grains, and calories. And you can find this information on a product spec sheet or on a nutritional facts label. So just what you're seeing on the screen is something you might even see on your cereal box at home, or when you go to the grocery store, you'll see these. These are commonly in place now, and it's going to show you all those items I just listed: your calories, your sodium, saturated fat. So further, USDA divided calories by age grade group. So depending on which age grade group you're planning for, it has different calorie requirements. So you'll see here how it's divided up. There is a little overlap if you look at K through 5 and 6 through 8. If you did have a K through 8 menu, you could overlap that menu and offer the same menu because their calories do overlap a little bit. Whereas if you look through 9 through 12, a high school level, the calories do not overlap, so they need to be kept separately. Calorie ranges for all meals are calculated using a weekly average. This means that calories totaled for 5 days are added together and then divided by 5 to come up with an average. So what we're saying is some days you might have a really high calorie count day, and the next day might be really low, and that's okay because you can average it. You use the average for the week. to make sure you're meeting those requirements. So here's how they did the calculation. They added up each day's calories, came up with a total, and divided that by 5 days. Now, that was only one entree. What if you have multiple entrees on your line? When you have multiple entrees and sides are offered, you will calculate the total number of calories for the foods prepared and divide it by the number of servings. So we're just going to look at, we know in the past how many you're going to eat the burrito and how many is going to have spaghetti. You kind of have a rough idea because you're planning for it. You have past food production records you can look at to come up with an idea of what you are planning to prepare. And that's when you would put in, I think I'm going to have 175 going to eat burritos and 450 will eat the spaghetti. And so when you're planning for that, that's how you come up with your calories if you have multiple entrees. So for this example, 625 servings. And they took the calories and added it up and then divided by the 625 to get an average calories for those entrees. When we're talking about balancing the requirements, so remember I showed you a couple slides ago how some days were higher, some days are lower. So just being aware of that when you are planning your menus, you want to pair lower and higher calorie items to balance it out. Maybe you'll pair a higher calorie entree with lower calorie sides to meet the requirements. For example, maybe you have a high calorie pizza and you will serve it with roasted vegetables. So these are just some examples of making sure, there's different ways you can still have a high calorie option. You can still serve it. You just need to remember how you're going to balance it out. Okay, so that was calories. Now let's talk about the sodium. So again, this is on the fact sheet or the product spec sheet. You can find the sodium amount in that product. So the sodium targets for National School Lunch Program, there's new regulations that came into effect this July. So make sure you're aware of it. It was decreased by 10%. And this will be in effect for the next 2 years. So again, you can see how there's different age grade groups and what those sodium targets are. You don't have to worry about writing all this down. You can go to Square Meals and they do have a meal pattern chart available under training and resources. So let's look at an example of the changes that are coming up this year. They've already been in effect. So last year, target 1 was 1,230 milligrams, whereas now we're at 1,110. Six through 8 went from 1,360 to 1,225. 9 through 12, 1,420 to 1,280. The good thing is, again, we are going to use our average sodium for the week. So you're going to take your sodium totals for each day. If you're serving for 5 days, divide it by 5. Now, some tips for reducing sodium. Again, like we show, you might have a higher sodium item on one day. And again, like we do with the calories, you're just going to balance it out with lower sodium sides or a lower sodium option later in the week. So some lower sodium sides are fresh fruits and vegetables, using herbs and spices instead of salt. Increase your scratch cooking. Look for lower sodium versions of your current menu items. A good example of that is our USDA foods. All of those items are low sodium items, so they're good options. And the Institute of Child Nutrition has many recipes that help create delicious, compliant menus, and I'll show you that resource here in just a second. So just thinking about your location for a second, and you can put some examples in chat. How have you addressed meeting this new sodium target? I'll give you just a minute to think about it and put some suggestions in chat. If you've had anything you have come across, maybe it's a new product. Everybody's happy it's Friday. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on. Using more fruits and vegetables, yes, definitely. Okay. So again, nutritional standards also cover saturated and trans fat requirements. So the trans fat must fall below 10% of the total calories. And that's for each age grade group. Oh, I see someone put they do a lot of scratch cooking. That's amazing. I love that. Oh, someone asked, would you need to add condiments into the analysis for calories and sodium? Yes, anything that is part of the reimbursable meal on that tray that day, yes, it has to be included, even if it's a dessert, a cookie, all of your condiments are included in that calories and sodium, and it should be also included in your food production record or on your food production record. Good question. Okay, so let's look at saturated fat. So again, we said it was 10% the calories for that age grade group. So you have to look at the calories for that age grade group. And the total calories from saturated fat must meet on an average over the school week, again, just like we did with the sodium and the calories. And again, one day might fall above the average as long as the weekly average meets the guidelines. Trans fat is not allowed in any age grade group for breakfast or lunch unless it's naturally occurring trans fat in meat or dairy made with whole milk. So less than 0.5 grams of trans fat per serving are considered as zero and are acceptable. So just making sure that it's 0.5 grams or below, and unless it is naturally occurring. This might be something like avocado, or like it says here, any dairy products made with whole milk, maybe cottage cheese. So just be aware of that. So there will be copies of this presentation in their live binder, and I believe they put a link to that in the beginning of the conversation, in the chat, sorry. If you need it again, you can just reach out to Region 10. They'll be able to provide that to you. Some resources. So I said earlier, the Institute of Child Nutrition. So that's theicn.org. And then if you do /CNRB, don't worry about writing this down. She's going to give you a link to all these slides. You'll see it there. but they have recipes in there that are very helpful, low sodium ideas. China Nutrition Sharing Site. If you haven't been that, it's pretty neat. It's different schools across the United States where they are uploading their recipes and best practices that they have used. Square Meals also has some recipes on there as well. They have recipes for National School Lunch Week coming up. Lots of great ideas there. And then the USDA website, nutrition.gov. So lots of great resources. So what resources have you guys come across? Is there anything that you might use that, even if I did list them here, is it something that you've used? Or do you have another resource you could share with everybody? FN website. Oh. Chef Ann, I know it's from, I know what that name is, but I can't think of what, who does she work for? Or do you have that web link you could share in the chat? Consulting organization. Okay. I know I've heard the name. I've probably been to one of her sessions. Yeah, talking to other schools, using the resources. Yes. Networking is always great. Nice. All right. Very good. Is there any questions on so far? And that was just kind of going over just a real quick overview of meal patterns. You kind of need to understand your meal pattern, right, before you can develop a menu. But if you need further training on meal patterns, there's additional training that can be provided as well. Team nutrition recipes, yes, team nutrition website, that's a great one. All right. So the second part, we're going to talk about menu cycles, understanding the benefits and purpose and process, some pre-planning, how to balance out cost, availability, nutritional requirements, building a menu cycle, and then how to incorporate USDA foods. All right, cycle menus. So the benefits of a cycle menu is you're planning and calculating the amount of USDA foods to request. So if we do that now, before we go into WebSCM, we're going to have an idea of what we are going to order. You probably already kind of do this and don't even realize that you're building a menu cycle. You know, like I said, on Tuesdays, Taco Tuesday, and Fridays, we serve pizza. Whatever it is that you do, you kind of probably do the same things in so many, kind of repeat it, right? It helps with quick grocery shopping. You know what you're going to be ordering. It's not a guessing game. Maximizes use of entitlement and controls cost and saves time. So when you do your menu cycle, you're applying your menu planning that we learned in part 1, your nutritional standards, meal components, calorie limits, fat, and sodium. So the first thing you do with pre-planning is label your menu days with the protein you're going to offer, your meat alternate. Then you will assign the entrees to those proteins, pair it with fruits and vegetables, and then incorporate your condiments and milk. So let's take a look at that. This is, again, pre-planning. So the first thing, to help balance out your menu here is you got to think about your nutritional requirements. Nutritional standards compliance should be addressed when creating your menu cycle. Remember to keep in mind the standard variations for each age grade group. Budget and cost per entree. So you want to make sure you pair lower cost and higher cost entrees together to help balance it out. So if you offer 2 entrees, or even during the week, maybe one day is a higher cost and the next day is a lower cost. So, besides everything else you have to think about with nutritional standards, you're also thinking about your budget, right? And add on to that, you need to think about what the students prefer. What are their preferences? How many students are you serving? All of that has to be considered. The total number to be served within an allotted time can lead to a factor that in what foods are prepared. If you are serving 100 kids as opposed to 600 kids, is this an item that I can pull that off with? So thinking about that. Large campus numbers that need to be served in a short period of time will need to factor that into their menu planning. And again, your menu items may differ greatly from pre-K versus your higher level campuses. Product availability. Are the products on my menu cycle regularly available for requisition? Is this something that's really going to be something I can really request with USDA Foods? Or is it something I'm going to be able to purchase throughout the year through my vendor? So just being aware of that product availability. Storage. Does my site have adequate storage for dry and cold? The amount of types of storage capabilities on a site will determine how often you'll have your deliveries. And of course, equipment and staff. Do you have the equipment to prepare food that you are menuing? Or is your staff at the site able to prepare those? I saw someone list just a minute ago, they do a lot more scratch cooking. Well, making sure your staff is trained or that they're able to do that scratch cooking. And if you have the equipment to pull that off, do you have a nice pizza oven you can run pizzas through? Or do you have, a smaller oven? So just thinking about those, what is my equipment and what is my staff capabilities? Also, with your pre-planning, you're going to pull historical data. You're going to start with your past food production records and your student preferences. And write down the list of those student preferences. Kind of think about it. I think you probably know, if you've been there for a while, you probably know what your kids enjoy to eat. So what menu items have you seen as student favorites? You can type that in chat. I'm curious to see. Oh, nachos. Yes, that's a favorite. Wings. Nice. Pizza. Yep. I love pizza. Oh, Frito pie. Mini corn dogs. Yeah. Oh, pizza burgers. I never had that. And the walking tacos. Yeah, I've seen more and more of the walking tacos. That's really cool. Okay, pre-planning. So what kind of kitchen, we kind of talked about this earlier with the equipment. What kind of kitchen do I have? Can you bake? Just the layout of the kitchen. So kind of thinking about that before you start your menu planning. You want to make sure you set yourself and your team up for success. And the number of entrees to be served. If it's an item that maybe takes a lot of steps in it and you're serving a lot of kids in a short amount of time, just be aware of that. Am I able to, is this going to set my staff up for success? Again, if you have a nutritional analysis software is available. It can help you analyze those calories, saturated fat as well. Okay, so we did all our pre-planning. We thought about what our kids like. We looked at our historical data. Now we are ready to build our menu. So again, remember the first step was to label our proteins or meat alternate. So you go through each day and you label the days with the proteins you want to serve. Maybe you're going to do like this example. They have beef, chicken, they have a vegetarian day, chicken again, and then fish. So that's just one example of how you could do it. From there, you're going to plan your entrees from those proteins listed. And you could look at those recipes, all those resources we saw earlier. So Monday, they decided to do a hamburger, and then baked chicken, cheese enchilada, chicken chalupa, and a fish taco. The next step would be to pair your fruits and vegetables. So you can see here, they added different vegetables. Again, making sure you are meeting your weekly and daily requirements for your age grade group, and make sure you're meeting your subgroups for your vegetables. Remember too, when you're building your menu, that you're adding variety. When we talk about variety, we're not just talking about different menu items, we're also talking about shapes, sizes, texture, color. I was really bad when I was a director. I would have chicken nuggets, macaroni and cheese, and corn, and that plate looked horrible. The kids loved it, but the plate is just very brown. I needed to change it up, maybe add some grapes, like this example, some broccoli to add some color to the plate. So thinking about that, it sounds great on the paper, but then when you look at it on the tray, it just was not appealing. And again, making sure you're listing your milk choices and you're adding your condiments. You can see here they have the milk choices. Okay, so the next step of this is going on to each week. So we built a full week just because of limited space. It doesn't show the fruit and all the requirements on the screen, but just know we have built a complete menu that meets compliance. So we did that for 1 week. Now we're going to go on and do it again for week 2 and week 3. So now we have built a 3-week cycle to start with. Now, you'll have to remember that with supply chain issues, sometimes you might have to move items around. We've had to deal with that a lot the last few years, so we understand that happens. And you might look at last year's numbers and remove items that were low in popularity. Maybe you've planned this out and now you're looking at it again, like, oh, or maybe they did not like the pulled pork slider. That didn't go over so well. But also think about, what was it paired with? If I had the pulled pork sliders with the walking tacos, more walking tacos went out than the pulled pork sliders, maybe I should pair it with something else. This is another good example of when we look at our past food production records. So again, just reviewing that process we talked about earlier, you're going to pre-plan. You're going to label first with proteins, then assign the entrees to match those proteins. Pair it with your fruits and vegetables. Make sure you add your condiments and milk, and then continue on to each week to build your menu cycle. Now you can have a menu cycle of 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever works best for your situation. Okay, now let's talk about incorporating the USDA foods into our menus. So you'll learn this more when we get into WebSCM training. But when we say, this is new terminology, so you will no longer hear the word brown box. It'll now be direct delivery. And farm to school will now be local grown. And don't worry, we're going to say this to you a bunch of times in the next few weeks when we do the training. So you will get to where you'll understand, you'll remember it quickly. So when I say again, direct delivery, again, that is usually what we heard of as brown box. So USDA Foods comes in many forms. Direct delivery, beef processing, DOD fresh, or local grown farm to school. So these are different buckets that you can use your entitlement with. So including those into your cycle menus. So know the product's availability. Be aware of delivery capabilities. Consider your processing diversion versus direct delivery or brown box. So meaning, is this something that I can get that I have to have processed, or can I get it just as a direct delivery form? Maybe it's diced chicken. Instead of sending a whole chicken to a processor, maybe I can already get the diced chicken through a direct delivery and bypass that processing step. Are you using DOD fresh? These are great fresh fruits and vegetables that you can get through DOD using your entitlement. Use of local grown, formerly called farm to school. These are items that are grown here in Texas, local to you. And it's great to advertise that to our students and use those products. And of course, plan for unexpected changes, including matching commercial end products in the bids. So maybe there's something that you're going to try and process, a chicken nugget. You're going to get whole chicken and you want to turn it into a chicken nugget, but making sure you also have a backup plan in case those processed chicken nuggets don't come in. Maybe you could still order them through, if your vendor was Cisco, you could still put that on your bid with your Cisco bid. So just plan for those unexpected changes. So look at some serving models. Again, you always want to look at your space. What does your kitchen look like? Look at your storage space. If your menu includes USDA regular commodities, you will have enough space to bring it all in and have it delivered to you, or are you going to have it held for long-term storage at your warehouse, and then you'll be accruing storage costs. So making sure you have enough space to accept those commodities. Do you have the right equipment, or will you need to purchase equipment to do your menu? And again, thinking about the staff. Does your staff, maybe your staff needs more training, or do you have enough staff? Also think about the shelf life on the products that you placed on your menu. For example, is a cheese stick or yogurt, you have that on your menu. Make sure you're thinking about the shelf life of those products. Look at your current inventory. Before we go into WebSCM and start ordering our commodities, do we still have commodities left over for last year? And why? Why are those products still sitting there? Maybe they weren't popular, or maybe you need to make sure they're included in your menu cycles. Do we have any questions? So again, there is the WebSCM transition page. On this page, you will find all the trainings, but also Region 10 is posting those in their live binder, but they are available here as well, along with some handouts that are very helpful, like one-pagers, especially when we start getting into WebSCM transition, then you will see that. Those would be great resources as well. Can I go over the sodium limits again for multiple entrees? Let's see which slide. So again, you're using your average. So it'd be the same way you figure out your calories. See if I can make you guys dizzy by switching the slides real fast. So you're going to take, if you have multiple entrees, you're going to look at each entree, what the sodium is on that. How many you think of each entree the student, or what are you planning for? I'll get there in a second. There's your way to do this.
Chris, it may have been in part 1.
Oh, yes. Okay. Let me pull it up. Okay. We'll get there. It'll be easier. I'm trying to make you guys all sick to your stomach here. But yeah, you're going to take, just like we do with the calories. And you're going to look at how many were served, or how many you planning on serving. And while I'm looking on that, is there any other questions I can answer? Oh my gosh, here we go. Okay. So you'll see here, how you're just using your planned amount. So if you're planning for 175 and say the sodium, ignore that it says calories, you're gonna put your sodium amount here. And again, with the spaghetti, you're planning this many, and what is your sodium amount? And you're gonna divide that by the total servings that you're planning for, and that's how you'll get your average for your sodium. Well, entrees. Well, you'd have to come up with your planned amount for your sodium. Now, that many entrees, do you use a software? Because the software should also figure that for you as well. NutriKids, yeah. So I'm not off the top of my head, I don't know what that's familiar with NutriKids, but it should be a way where it's going to calculate your sodium and calories for you. With that many entrees, that's a lot of math for you to be doing. I mean, but this is how you would do it. You'd put in your planned amount, but I'm sure NutriKids has a way to calculate that as well. Correct. So that ends our section on menu planning. Again, this is just a small, quick training on menu planning, just to help you think about the process before we get into WebSCM. There are additional trainings on menu planning and meal patterns that go more into deep on that. So just thinking about that, is there, do you need further training on that? you can always reach out for Region 10 on that as well. If you have any other questions, please stay on. I think Nikisha has some more to go over with you before you leave us.
Yes. Thank you, Chris. Great training. Okay, everyone. So again, make sure that you have signed in. We'll drop that link into the chat one last time. So our next training will be Tuesday, October the 17th. So you'll notice we did take a break next week. A lot of you are on fall break, so we wanted to make sure that we were able to capture as many people for training as we could. So we are not doing any training next week. We'll resume the week after. And that week we will have 2 separate trainings. Well, it'll be the same topic, but we'll have it offered twice. And hope you all have a great weekend. And for those of you that will be in session next week, please send us your national school lunch pictures. We would love to see what you all are doing out there. And have a great fall break. Okay, Michael, let me take a look. So it's FDP menu planning part 1, part 2. And we'll also send out an email with the material as well. Okay, we're going to go ahead and end the training if there are no additional questions. All right, you all have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.